I'm Kerrie Goude. My husband Joe and I have been together for 11 years and we've got 2 children, a 5-year-old daughter called Mia and a brand new baby boy called Theo. For me it's all about family life and it's all about just spending time with them, making special memories. Joe tested positive just before Christmas. He didn't actually have any of the symptoms that you look out for. And about 4 days after he caught it, I started to get a bit of a scratchy throat and thought, okay, here it is.
Our daughter, the only symptoms she had was she had backache for about 20 minutes one day. That was it. So she seemed to fend it off.
I tested positive just literally before Christmas, a couple of days before.
Kerrie started to deteriorate quite badly on the 28th. She rang 111 for some advice, and I think because she was pregnant as well, they sent out some paramedics. 2 ambulances came out, and then she walked out the front door and I didn't see her again until the 18th of Jan.
My pulse rate was resting about 150 and they couldn't bring it down with anything. And he said, because precautionary, we need to rush you in, it's just protocol, don't panic. And they took me straight into resus.
You just didn't know what was going to happen. And even when she went off, we thought, well, she'll go in for a couple of days, they'll check out, make sure everything's fine and she'll be home. So when she left, never in a million years did you think where she ended up was even an option.
They gave me IV paracetamol, which did bring my temperature down, so instantly I felt better. They were sort of worried mainly about my heart rate, my pulse. They gave me IV fluids and it came down from about 150 down to about 140. They took an X-ray on my lungs and then the doctor popped his head around the door and said, your X-ray's back, your lungs look horrendous, we need to admit you. I was on the ward for about 2 or 3 days and they were just basically giving me the same kind of medication over and over, but it stopped taking effect. They called the nurse from critical care and said we need her to be assessed. And I remember thinking, God, this is real, like this is serious. I remember being wheeled into the room and it was exactly like you see in the films. Lots of people all around my bed. At this point I was obviously low on oxygen, so I think at my worst I was reliant on 90% external oxygen to stay alive essentially. The doctor came over and I just almost begged and pleaded with him and said, I can't do this anymore. I need you to help me. And I knew that there'd been talks previously about ventilation and that they obviously wanted to avoid it at all costs. It comes with lots of other caveats and lots of other things that happen as a result.
I got the text at 3 o'clock in the morning, like, it's not good, I've taken a turn for the worse. I don't think I can carry on fighting this. They rang and said, look, we're going to be putting her on a ventilator. We don't know how long, prepare yourself for weeks. This isn't a day's thing. And ultimately we'll do what's best. And I remember the phone going down because I think they were there, the phone went down and then they went and did it. And she's been in a total state of shock.
The consultant came back and he said, yep, okay, so everything's in place. We're going to get you off to sleep. And he was sort of going through the logistics and what's going to happen and the process and what has to happen next. And just before he went, he said, have you got any questions? And I said, you will keep me alive, won't you? And he was such a lovely guy and he just went, I've got this. I had a nurse stood with me, she was holding my hand and she said, it's going to be all right, you're going to be okay. And that was it, and that's the last I remember.
The hospital had tried to ring me and I'd missed the phone call. I'd been out getting some food shopping and I just had a text message from Kerrie's mum saying she's awake. And I think I dropped the bag of food shopping and I was trying to ring the hospital. And then in the process of ringing, I got a text message from Kerrie that just said, hi.
I remember them taking the tube out and it just feeling like it was never ending. And I obviously would have been heavily sedated, but enough to know, and switching to an external oxygen mask.
I remember her telling me she came round and she didn't think there was a baby. And the obstetrics consultant had already been to scan her. So that day she didn't get a scan. She wasn't aware a scan was taking place. When they came around the next day and scanned her, she, well, what are you doing?
She started scanning me and she said, okay, so there's the baby and there's the heartbeat. And I looked at the screen and said, sorry what? She said, there's the baby and there's the heart beating away. It's really strong. You can see, look, you can see him kicking. I said, baby? What do you mean, baby?
She had to get her head round being pregnant again and having that attachment to the baby.
I was first aware of Kerrie when she was admitted, but I wasn't looking after her at that time. And I properly came into contact with her through our critical care recovery service, where we review patients around about 2 weeks after they've been discharged from critical care. And for Kerrie, it was particularly difficult because she was pregnant and there were lots of unknowns there. So she had very intense treatment and support during her ICU stay from the obstetric and the intensive care team. And we wanted to ensure that she had that follow-up and the continuity post-ICU as well.
I couldn't even walk, I couldn't even stand. None of this obviously I was aware of at the time because I'm laid in a bed, I didn't need to.
Some of the things that we were concerned about with Kerrie related to her breathing. She needed some respiratory support, some physical rehabilitation. She was very weak after having been very poorly with COVID in the ICU. And then of course there was the obstetric issue as well.
Getting the sort of the nods to go and pick her up from hospital was incredible. I remember waiting by the lifts and the nurse bringing her out and seeing her. She looked like a different person. She'd obviously lost a lot of weight.
We knew then that we were out of the immediate danger zone in regards to the pregnancy, but again we were in uncharted waters. The hospital hadn't dealt with somebody at my gestation as unwell as I was, and they just didn't know what that impact, short and long term, would be on the baby. We went in to hospital on the Monday to have a planned caesarean section, and I was just so emotional and just so up and down, and it was finally happening, and relief but fear and all the usual things. They made the experience, real calm.
It was great. Obviously he came, he was fine, and Kerrie was fine.
When I was allowed to go home from hospital, Joe and Mia came pick us up because obviously we still couldn't have visitors. So, he was 4 or 5 days old before she could actually meet him. And she came absolutely bounding into the reception where we were stood waiting. And she just couldn't believe her luck that he was here finally and we were going to be able to take him home.
As a group of people, they're just incredible human beings, the staff at Lister, that having seen it right from the start of the pandemic, all the way through, seeing at different stages what they've had to deal with. They ultimately gave me my family back, so I'll be forever indebted to every single one of them. I
wouldn't even know where to start in what I would say to them because I could not praise them enough, and I've said it to anybody that will listen to me, and all you hear is the NHS is grossly underfunded, waiting times are really long, you go to A&E and you're waiting for an eternity to even be seen. So that was my perception of hospitals and the NHS, and it could not have been further from that.
We never expected to get the virus and be really ill in the first place. It can happen to anybody.
I will forever be changed as a person because of what happened to me. I was 100% invincible. I was a strong, independent woman. What do you need in life? You don't need anything more than your family and your loved ones around you. It's a stark reminder, but life is all that matters, ultimately.